Sethos is the funnest DPS we've had in a while. Okay, so fun is very much subjective in this context, but personally I've been having a great time with my accidental pull of getting Sethos. The fact that he actually has like two different ways to play him and then both playstyles are really fun and effective in their own way is a pretty cool thing that I feel like I don't think we've really seen it in Genshin before. So what does he do exactly? Sethos is a 4-star electro DPS wielding the bow as his weapon. His elemental skill makes him dash back and does some electro damage, although the main part of this kit is that he gains energy back if this skill triggers any electro reaction. His elemental burst infuses his normal attack shots with electro and grants it the ability to pierce enemies for a short period of time. So these infused normal attacks are considered charge attack damage, so artifact sets like the 4-piece Wanderer's Troop is especially good on him. In fact, it's actually one of his best artifacts. So remember how I said he has two playstyles, right? So the first playstyle is the infused normal attack spam with his burst, and the second one is the level 2 charge attack spam. So Sethos has an ascension where his charge attack charge time can be reduced if he consumes energy. He consumes 20 to instantly charge the level 2 charge shot, which does have a piercing effect, and half of that being 10 for just a regular pew-pew shot. Well, it's infused with electro, so you get the point. So on top of that, level 2 charge attack can pierce his enemies, and he does have the other ascension passive, which actually mega buffs 4 shots for his level 2 charge attacks. And personally, I feel like Sethos is actually one of the cheaper DPS units we've had in a while, especially of how easy it is to build him, and here are some reasons why. So first of all, his second best weapon according to most guides, especially the one I'm referring to from Kaching mains, is actually a 3-star gacha weapon. Yes, you heard it. It's the slingshot. So unless for some reason you use this as fodder for whatever weapon, most people who at least pulled the gacha would at least have one copy, and preferably, well, I guess most commonly you would probably have a refinement 5 sitting at the back of your account. Also, being a 3-star weapon, it uses less resources to level up compared to 4-star and 5-star weapons. If you didn't know that, you can say today you learned about that fact today. The second reason why I feel like he's such a cheap DPS is because he's one of the 4-star characters where his Constellation 6 is not that necessary for him to do the most damage. Because generally you look at other 4-star characters like the recent one like Hazo or what is the other one? Chevrolet is more support, so I can't really count that. But basically like the past 4-star characters, Faruzan, most of them, Faruzan, Hazo or whatever like 4-star DPS usually require the C6, and it gives like some sort of quality of life bug like Gaming with the bigger plunging attack AoE, or like some sort of crit rate, crit damage buff. Sethos C6 is not exactly like, I wouldn't say it's not useful, but it's not going to really change the way you play, and I don't feel like it's going to be his biggest constellation increase, so you don't exactly need C6 in order to make him do the most damage. Like, look at my Sethos. Mine is only constellation 4, and his damage is actually quite comparable to C0 5-star characters of a similar class. So the third reason is that most of his damage actually scales of Elemental Mastery, aka EM. Since his biggest source of damage is actually from either Aggravate or Hyper Bloom, you don't need to spend extra resources for his talents. In fact, you could actually leave his talents at 666, since bringing him to level 90 is actually a way bigger damage increase rather than leveling set talents. In fact, I actually keyed in the calcs in the website that I always use, and leveling his burst from level 6 to level 8 only gives him like a 4% damage increase average for his special infused normal attack. So given the amount of resources you need in order to bring the talents from level 6 to level 8, 4% is really just not efficient or just straight up a waste of resource. So if you do want to maximize his damage, it's actually better to bring him to level 90 first. Now for these artifacts, he doesn't really have that much options, but his best set is actually very accessible. So the 4-piece Wanderer's Troop is an artifact set that's been around since the beginning of the game. It's something that you will definitely get over time if you farm weekly or overworld bosses, and the fact that you can also get it from a strongbox makes it probably the easiest to obtain out of all the other sets. The Gilded Dream set is also a good choice, but it does fall behind Wanderer's Troop by quite a bit, so unless you have a spare for Gilded Dreams from farming the Deepwood domain, it's probably not your best option available. The Desert Pavilion Chronicle, aka Skara's weapon, is good for his normal attack spam build, but I personally feel like it's not worth farming this unless you don't actually mind getting the other set, being the Nilu Flowers of Paradise Lost set for whatever Hyper Bloom or Dendro reaction DPS that you will get. So of course, these are all the pluses. Now what about his downsides or his cons? Of course, he does have a few downsides, so let us address them. First of all, his charge attack playstyle is quite hard to sustain unless you have like a second electro unit that can generate a lot of energy for him, aka Prinzessin de Vortelong official, because it consumes quite a good chunk of his energy for the instant level 2 charge. So it is preferable or almost mandatory for you to actually have a second electro unit. By second, I specifically mean official, and also build a good amount of ER on your Sethos. And the downside of that is that you're going to trade out some offensive stats like EM or crit rate, crit damage for some ER, so your damage ceiling is going to be comparatively lower. Now then we have the normal attack spam playstyle. I would consider this playstyle to be almost perfect, and in fact it's actually the style that actually has the highest DPS for him, with the exception of his third normal attack string. So his regular normal attack spam, right, he has like 3 shots, like 1, 2, 3. So he unleashes the first 2 shots quite fast, but the third shot takes like absolutely forever, which is why a lot of guides recommend you to either walk, like hold the walk button after you do 2 shots and then let him walk and then do the same thing again. Or if you can't be bothered to do that, do a jump cancel after 2 normal attacks or do a dash cancel in order to maximize in DPS. And honestly, I think the fact that these kind of downsides is actually stupid, and the fact that we need to rely on text like this in order to maximize damage, I don't really think is as cool, given that I feel like it's kind of like an inconvenience overall. And the third downside is that because when he has his level 2 charge attack, right, is a piercing one, he can't actually move, and I think this is the first out of all bow characters to have such a feature, which means he's extremely reliant on a shielder for that resistance to interruption. So like, I don't understand what's with Hoyo and designing any charge attack bow DPS or any bow DPS with 0 like interrupt resist. Like, come on, Hoyoverse, like, you can do better than this. Give me Yoimiya but sing true swords around her so that she can actually not get slapped by a goddamn ruin guard while I'm too busy spamming my normal attack. Because a lot of these like characters, right, whether you could look at like Yoimiya or Aloy or any sort of bow characters, a lot of them tend to not really have any sort of built-in interrupt to resist. And I think probably the latest one, not really a bow character but kind of related, is basically Cloran, because the resistance to interruption is kind of locked behind C6. So unless you use like Zhongli or you use like a character like Beidou, Thoma or Xingqiu to get that resist interrupt, it's just plain up annoying, the fact that we don't have these kind of abilities built in. Because I think most of you guys can probably agree with me, because imagine trying to play the game and you just get snapped by 2 different enemies rather over and over again, and then next thing you know you're dead. Like, that's not fun, and I personally rather not take 1 slot in my team just to get quality of life units. I'd rather have characters or supports that can buff the entire team or do actual damage. So, well, units like Zhongli or Kirara or honestly any good shielders are quite preferable if you do prefer comfort over meta. And of course, the final downside is that it's an Electro unit. Now, Sumeru has been out for a while. We've had a good amount of Electro DPS, and most of them are extremely reliant on Dendro in order to reach the highest damage ceiling, with the exception of Raiden. And no, we don't look at Hyper Bloom Raiden. Like, characters like Electro DPS like Keqing, Sino, Cloran, Dori, Fischl, Lisa, and now Sethos, of course, Kuki to an extent with Hyper Bloom. Thundering Fury Razor, aka the Burgeon Hyper Bloom build, is also quite reliant on Dendro, which is why I consider this element to be quite a blessing and yet a curse at the same time for any sort of Electro DPS, because of how much it actually buffs Electro overall. I feel like it's reached to a point where trying to run Electro units without Dendro, it just feels like you're going back to pre-Sumeru, basically just Genshin pre-Sumeru, where Electro units are just considered to be on par or even slightly better than Geo, and that's not really a compliment, rather it's more of a mockery. So if you don't have any off-field Dendro units like Kole or Dendro Traveler, Nahida Baiju, or C4 Kirara, which is very much tied to a constellation, you don't really want to consider running any of the DPS I just mentioned. So despite all these restrictions, I still do enjoy him quite a lot if you do have the right components, the resources to actually build him. And funny enough, I actually enjoy him considerably more than Cloran. In fact, I actually stole all my Ganyu artifacts and straight up nerf her just to feed my Sethos with the build that you're seeing on the screen right now. That's how much fun I'm enjoying with him, and that's how much I'm willing to give him just to really feel something about this game again. Overall, I would rate Sethos very much 7 out of 10. I mean, it's debatable. You could probably rate him as a 6 out of 10, but I would say 6.5 is probably the lowest I can give him, because he's very much a very solid and yet quite affordable DPS given what you really need in order to give him like the best possible performance. He's not going to give you the big numbers like a lot of units like Arlequin or Neuvillette, because they're the top of the top. You can't expect it to be like Hu Tao or a lot of these really solid DPS unit, but as a 4-star DPS, he will definitely get the job done, whether it be Spiral Abyss or maybe to a certain extent Imaginarium Theater. So what do you guys think about him? Like, did you guys try him yet? Even though I know I'm recording this video way past when his banner has been out. I wanted to make this a while ago, but I was kind of sick for a little bit. So yeah, what do you guys think about him? Did you guys try him out yet? Do you have like Sethos in the background by accident because you're playing for Haytham or Cloran and you have yet to build him? Just let me know what you think in the comments section below. Anyways, do the usual interact, slap that like button if you enjoyed the video, subscribe for more content. I'll promise to try to chug out more content that is kind of like more of a review casual style like this. But until then, I will see you guys in the next video. Peace out.